Hello, welcome back to Michigan Farm Bureau's Bee Agriculture Career Conversations. My name is Katie Eisenberger and Amelia Miller is here with me, and we are talking with industry professionals on a variety of different careers that you potentially could take in your next steps after you graduate from high school. So today we're looking at Be the Change and how you can take your passions in advocacy and education and working with people and make that a career path for you. And so we have three industry professionals here today to share with us. Just some housekeeping. You as an attendee are unable to talk, but you can ask questions through our Q&A box. So if you have a question for our panelists, make sure to drop that in the box there and we'll get that to them while we chat with them. So we're going to dive in like we do every single session and get right to it. And so we're going to start with Sarah Zastro. And Sarah, tell us a little bit about what you do, what your title is, who you work for, or if you work for yourself, and what kind of drew you to this career. Sarah, I think you're still muted there. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. So my name is Sarah Zastro. I am an entrepreneur. I started my own business because I saw that there was an area in the field of agriculture that needed to be filled. And so what I do is I'm a stress expert and I teach people how to improve mental health on their farms and also in the agriculture profession. So whether you're a seed salesman or an agronomist or a vet or a farmer, we all have mental health struggles and lots of stress. So what I do is teach people how to manage that in a healthy and effective way. So I am a speaker, I am starting a podcast, and I teach workshops at conferences. So my business is called Cultivate Balance, and it's all about managing the stress in your life.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today, Sarah. And Katie, we'll move over to you if you'd introduce yourself.
My name is Katie Frazier, and I work for Michigan State University's Institute of Agricultural Technology. I'm a program coordinator, so I work with college students. I'm their advisor. I teach some of the classes, but I'm also kind of in charge of running the program, so the ag program. And I'm at Kellogg Community College. We have lots of different locations in the state of Michigan that you could go to for our ag tech program. And our ag tech program, just for those of you who don't know, it's meant for students who might not necessarily want to get a bachelor's degree right away. So instead of going 4 years after high school, going, oh, that's too much. This is a great way for you to get some extra education in agriculture and get an associate's degree at the same time. So those are 2-year degree programs.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, Katie. And John, we'll move up to you. Give us your background and what you get to do.
Sure. My name is John Cran. I work for Michigan Farm Bureau as our National Legislative Council. So what is that? I am a lobbyist. If you don't know what a lobbyist is, it's a person that takes the ideas of a group of people and tries to get our elected officials to implement the things that they would like to see accomplished. So in our case, it's our farmer members. Our organization is an organization for farmers, and they give us very specific direction on different political issues or policy issues, things that impact their livelihoods, and we try to put them in the law or take them out of the law, either one or the other. So that's what I do. I primarily interact with our elected officials that represent Michigan, that serve in Washington, D.C., and the various agencies and departments that are part of the Trump administration or in the past, the Obama administration, whoever it might be. So those are the people that are making the decisions at the federal level, and those are the people we want to try to influence. So an example might be something called the Farm Bill. It could be a water issue. It could be an international trade issue. It could be helping to navigate through this whole COVID-19 situation, what that means for farmers and profitability and making sure consumers can continue to have access to safe and affordable food. So I'll stop there.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for being with us as well, John. So kind of got high level of where you're from and get to know you a little bit more, but now we want to know kind of what are those main tasks that you get to do, whether that's daily, or maybe it's seasonally or project based, but kind of give us the just like that fly on the wall view of what you do in your job. What are those specific tasks when we're talking about be the change? Sarah, we'll start with you.
So the primary thing that I do every day is add value to people's lives. And as long as you're able to help people a little bit every day, then that's my goal. So I start every day with a morning show at 9 a.m. and we talk about a different topic related to stress, related to living a life full of wellness and health and happiness. And then, so I start my day every day with that morning show. It's on Facebook Live, and it's a fun way to interact with people and to help start out people's day on the right foot. I also teach through that. So I always try to teach a new concept every day. We typically have each week a different topic, and then we dive deep into that topic throughout the week. And then so that's kind of what I do every day. That consists of emails, different social media campaigns, lots of marketing, talking with other seed dealers and different things like that. How can I work with them? Not through COVID, but before COVID, I did a lot of speaking at conferences, speaking at meetings. So for example, your local co-op, the grain elevator that takes in all the corn and soybeans and dry beans, they have a meeting every year. And so they would have me come to their meeting and I'd say, you know, who I am and this is what I do. And here are a few ways that you can reduce the stress on your farm so that the stress of agriculture doesn't ruin your relationships and ruin your experience. And we all chose to be in this profession, and sometimes that's difficult. And so I talk about how you can change your mindset a little bit and a few things to do so that the stress of agriculture doesn't eat you alive, right? And so that's what I do mostly. And then a couple of times a year, I host workshops. So I'll have everybody kind of invite all social media, all the different companies that I work with, come to a centralized location, and we kind of work through that. Work through the stress, work through the mental health aspect, work through physical health and different ways to manage those relationships and things like that. When you work in a family business, when you work where you live, that's kind of unique. That's not a very common thing except in agriculture. And so there are a few tricks of the trade that make that a little easier. So I try to share those with people every day.
Awesome. Thank you for giving us that insight. I appreciate that. Miss Katie, what are some of your main tasks that you get to do in your job?
Okay, so I have an awesome job. I work with college students, and they are the ones, they've kind of already done the tough work of deciding what industry they want to go into. So the college students I work with choose to be part of our ag program. So one of the big things I do is, like, I have really close relationships with my students. My job is to help guide them through their college pathway to get to that end career goal. And so a lot of that is advising, so telling them, you know, what classes to go through. But it's not just like how a typical advisor would be, like, you know, oh, just in the spring and the fall. Like, no, that means at all times students have questions. And by being at one of our partnership locations, I'm also dealing with some other questions, like, you know, if they're having troubles with financial aid, like pointing them in the right direction to go to, because we're not exactly at Michigan State's campus. But not only do I advise and I really work closely with my students, I also teach some classes, and I have to tell you, I really enjoy that. I am an agronomist by trade when I went to school. And so I get the opportunity to kind of, you know, share my experiences and find others in the industry that my students can connect with, so they can, you know, decide, is this really what I want to do? I think so, but I need some hands-on experience in order to find out if that's true. So working with the students is by far my favorite, but I also get to connect with local industry. And so that means working with cool Farm Bureau people like we're listening to right now, and seeing, you know, saying, hey, take a chance on these guys and let them see what goes on in your operation or at your business. So that's kind of what my different tasks are.
Cool. Awesome. Sounds fun. I can see your passion. I always see everyone's passion when they share, but all of you guys have such great passion. John, what about you? What are some of your tasks that you get to do?
So there's a lot of things I do, but some of the things I want to highlight are one is just keeping up to speed on what's happening from a regulation and legislation standpoint. So it's a lot of reading and just researching. It's also relationships and keeping in contact with elected officials and helping them understand who we are and why our members are an important group that they should be listening to. Two things that I get to do. One is I get to take people to Washington, D.C. That's always fun. And having an opportunity for a farmer to talk firsthand to an elected official is the message they can convey is so much greater than what I can share secondhand. So having that real life example of what a piece of legislation might do to impact a farmer's bottom line, the people that they hire on their farm, the businesses they support, all that makes it very, very personal real fast. So taking people to Washington and also just getting people back home in Michigan, feeling comfortable to pick up the phone and call a legislator if something comes up. So one, making sure the message is there, it's consistent, that it's specific to what our members have asked us to do. And continue those relationships. So a lot of reading, a lot of talking on the phone, a lot of emails, a lot of Zoom meetings and Teams meetings and WebExes. So like everything.
Right? However you can connect with people at this point, right? Awesome. Well, as we look at, great overview of what you guys get to do throughout your year as you're working. Curious now if we could talk a little bit about your training and what your background is. And, I know Katie, you had mentioned agronomy, you're in this position. So we all know that careers can take different paths, and we can go into college or leave high school thinking this is what's going to happen. And then we end up in a job that wasn't even around when we graduated. So we just kind of share with us your background on your training, the education that you have, and then what you also now do, both formally or informally, to stay current in your position.
I started off wanting to be a physician's assistant and obviously landed in left field from that, but I certainly learned a lot along the way. So in being a physician's assistant, you have to get tactical field hours. So I chose to be an EMT. So I was the person who rode around on the ambulance, and if you called 911, I was the one who helped through college. And I did that through college, and that was one of the best experiences of my life. If you're able to get hands-on experience in your field working through college, I cannot recommend that enough. So in that, though, I learned I did not want to be a PA anymore. And so I wanted to focus more on the holistic and more on the prevention end of that, because there's a lot of issues with our healthcare system. There's a lot of issues with medicine in general, and there's a lot more that can be done from the prevention side of things. And I would rather be, an ounce of prevention than a pound of cure. So what that's not the right saying, but you guys know what I mean. So anyway, so I decided to go into exercise science, and then from there took my certification test to become a certified exercise physiologist. So technically that is my title, certified exercise physiologist. And basically that means that I study how different stressors affect the body at the cellular level, and then in turn what we can do in order to get the best possible outcome. So a lot of people who have the same job title go into something like cardiac rehab. So after you've had a heart attack, you go through an exercise program to build your heart to be stronger. Or they become a diabetic educator. So if you're diagnosed with diabetes, you have a meeting with a diabetic educator, and they teach you the foods to eat, the exercises to do, and things like that. For me, I noticed through being an EMT that pretty much everybody feels like tired, they feel anxious, and they just don't feel good in general. I would say 90% of the calls that we got, people calling 911, were not true emergencies. They were people with those in some symptom of those three buckets, okay? And the company I work for actually did a study. Only 4% of calls were true emergencies. So that means 96% of people had a problem that did not require the emergency room, but they didn't know how to fix it. So public education and health education is what can fill that gap. So that's what I chose to focus on. And I knew that I wanted to work in healthcare, but just on the prevention end. So I started working, teaching exercise and teaching pain management to people who had cancer. Right after college, I worked at a hospital network, and I loved that, but I knew that I could move about 500 times quicker if I started my own business, because there's a lot of red tape in an organization that's that big, and I knew that I could make a bigger impact if I was able to do what I wanted to on social media and with different public workshops and different things like that. And if I was privately funded instead of grant funded, I could literally start today and have a workshop this weekend and have people there. And if it's grant funded, that process will take years. And so I knew that I wanted to strike out on my own. So that's what I did, and started off teaching exercise, teaching people how to manage chronic pain. And now I got really into the stress and the aspect of that. And then in 2019, with things being so tough for farmers, there was a lot of issues with the weather and commodities prices, and a lot of stress, a lot of bankruptcies, a lot of farmer suicides. I decided to open up the aspect of my business to have sort of a one branch be the farm community. So now I help, what I say, everyday people, and then I also help farmers. So I still do both. So technically I'm an exercise physiologist, and that's what I do.
Awesome. Thank you. I think sometimes people don't make that connection that farming is very physical. It's like a sport every day, you know? So that's awesome that your path ended up that way. So cool. Thank you for sharing your background. Katie.
I don't know if I mentioned this, but that's just a bachelor's degree. Some people, think, oh, you have to be whatever, have a master's or whatever, but I just have my bachelor's degree, and then I went on for that additional certificate, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much for adding that. There you go. All right, Katie.
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, I don't have a typical education background. So I actually have a Bachelor of Science in Crop and Soil Science. And honestly, though, I think that's what's helped me. And I'm going to back up a little bit. In college, in order to teach post-secondary or college, you have to have a master's in your discipline in order to teach. So that's totally different than what your high school teachers have to do, or any teachers. They get master's degrees as well, but they have different bachelor's degrees based on what age group they are. But in college, so I have a bachelor's degree, and that's kind of my background is in agronomy. So I work with my students a lot of helping them out, understanding some agronomic practices. I'm finishing my master's degree right now in agronomy. But you don't necessarily need extra certifications when it comes to teaching college. Sometimes, things that have helped me out, doing some different trainings of like how to use like our D2L, which is our online platform. You guys might use Google Classroom for those of you listening in, but doing the different trainings on how to be a better teacher. But also with my master's degree, I try to find classes that also teach me how to be a good instructor and how to help those students out. But man, Sarah mentioned that hands-on, and I couldn't agree more with her on that. Really, that's kind of, that to me is what's going to let you know if that's exactly what you want to do. I remember taking a class in college. I thought I might want to do sales, and I rode along with the sales guy. And at the end of the day, I was like, oh, never again. I will never do that. But it's really good that we get those awesome hands-on experience. And I tell my students to go do those. So hands-on experience that I did, I gave back after there was a lady who helped me a lot in FFA, and I was so impressed with like how she took the time to volunteer. So I helped teach our evening FFA program at my my hometown. And that's kind of what made me realize, wow, this teaching isn't that bad, and it's actually really cool. So get that hands-on experience. If you're in high school, look at the different career center around you, or if your high school has classes, if you think you like teaching, take a class on like a teacher training. If you don't have that opportunity, then volunteer to help youth. 4-H, FFA, there are tons of different organizations out there that you can get that hands-on experience to see, like, hey, and now it's going to sound sound hard because you don't have a lot of training behind you, like classroom management skills, but it will give you somewhat an idea of if it brings you joy to teach others around you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Katie. And up to John. Give us a little bit of your background in training and education.
Sure. So I have a bachelor's in political science, and so I, like a lot of others here, I started thinking I wanted to go into the health side of things. Was pre-med for a few semesters before I stumbled across a government class that I really liked and thought, well, I should take some more of these classes, and that led to an opportunity to do a semester studying in Washington, D.C., doing internships for Congress, and then the full-blown major in that area. I didn't think, I left the farm. I grew up on a dairy farm. I left the farm thinking I'm hightailing my way out of here. I'm not coming back. And after I graduated, I learned about the Farm Bureau organization, and there was an opening, and that's where I started. I had a chance to go work for Congress in between for a few years, and came back in this role about 6 years ago as a lobbyist. So I spent the bulk of my career with Farm Bureau, worked for Congress for a little bit. Kind of in the middle too, I did a dual master's program in food systems and agribusiness management. So it's basically an MBA, a master's in business administration with an ag econ master. So definitely helps me what I'm doing. As far as continual training, I think so much of what I do is really dependent on what's the hot topic of the day, and you really have to become an expert on the issues as they come up. And there's so many of them, you really have to rely on a lot of other people on your team or other resource people you can identify to help you along the way, because so many of these issues are so complex, and you start looking at historical perspective of legislation or why we do things the way we do, and bringing in different groups of people on an issue. You don't move legislation unless you have a broad coalition of support, and usually has to be from both political perspectives in order to happen. And it isn't just the agriculture sector usually pushing those things. It has to be more people, because you need a broad cross section of your population to push an issue. And so, as a lobbyist, I think there's really maybe two directions you can take. You can work for an association like a Farm Bureau, or maybe a Chamber of Commerce, or you name it, it probably has an association, the topic, and they might hire lobbyists, or you can work for what's called a multi-client lobbyist firm, which you could go to if you didn't have your own lobbyist and staff. You could hire a group like this, maybe by the hour or by the project, to work on a host of issues. And so those lobbyists work for multiple associations or clients, and kind of learn the issues on the fly too. So there's really kind of two different ways to do it. And you'll also find that a lot of people in this role probably wear some other hats too. If you work for a commodity specific organization, you probably do some marketing type work in addition to the membership and advocacy kind of things too. So there's a whole host of things you can do. But if you're thinking about heading in this direction, I think one, find something you're passionate about and try to find a way to get involved in that issue. If it's agriculture, there's a variety of options. And two, a lot of people take the political route as well. And having background on working on a political campaign helps make a lot of connections and helps you understand issues as you're learning them and sharing them on behalf of someone else. And that can be one path as well. So it's really it's that hands-on. It's either working in an internship or working for someone that's running for an elected position that are two good options to maybe head in this direction. And I happened to stumble across something I was passionate about with agriculture, having grown up on a farm, and indirectly coming back to it. But it's a great opportunity to work for people that you have a lot of respect for and understand their issues, and at least continue to try to understand their issues because they're evolving. But and the farm that I grew up on is very different than what we have necessarily on farms today. So it's like a lot of industries, it's evolving.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think you guys all teed up the next question so well, because you touched on that hands-on and internship training and getting that experience. And so if there's a student that's listening today, whether they're high school or college, or maybe they're just somebody going, I don't know what to, I don't know what my next steps are. What are some, we've talked internships, so that one's already checked, but what are some hobbies or interests or organizations, maybe classes that they could start just to kind of see if that's, if this is the path that they want? Are there specific hobbies or activities on top of what we've already mentioned that they could either try, or if they're already doing it, go, oh, maybe this is a path for me? Sarah, any suggestions that you haven't mentioned? You guys have all done such a great job of answering.
I think for me, my path wasn't necessarily straight, but looking backward, 4-H was the foundation of everything for me. So it taught me how to be a good speaker. It taught me how to work one-on-one with people. It taught me how to teach, because as a 4-H leader, then you go back and work with the Clover Buds, the younger kids, and things like that. So I think definitely being involved in 4-H was huge. FFA is great as well. And then in college, I got involved with a lot of student organizations, some different student groups, doing more volunteering with kids, different things like that. And so as much as you can, put yourself out there, get involved, get your feet wet in the field that you're interested in. You will learn so much. And it's interesting. At the time, it might not feel like it. I remember feeling frustrated that I was doing all these quote unquote resume builders, and they were just wasting my time. And as soon as I turned in that resume, I'd be done. But looking backward, every single one of those has contributed to the skills that I have today and to the job that I do. So if you're able to get your feet wet, 4-H, FFA, doing those internships, volunteering, even helping out a neighbor. If you think you might be interested in agriculture, go down the road, go to the farm down the road and say, hey, can I follow you around for the day, right? Anybody can do that. It's free. And so I'm sure that everybody's got a little bit of extra time right now. And so that would definitely be a beneficial thing to do, but definitely get your feet wet as much as you can.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Katie?
Sarah, you are so right. My path is really curvy too. And you're so right in the fact of like FFA was honestly the foundational thing for me. And my area didn't have ag in our high school, so there might be some of you guys out there that have the same thing. So I went to a career center instead. And my true passion is agronomy and teaching plants and soils. I always tell my students, I'm the biggest plant nerd you have ever met, my friend. So don't be afraid to, get your hands dirty on, like, if you have opportunities in class, go do the soil judging pit, even though it sounds crazy. Now, if you don't have like the FFA or the 4-H opportunities around you, you can also do other organizations within your high school, whether that's at NHS, National Honor Society, a Spanish club. There are lots of ways to show leadership and get an idea, like be the head of a committee. Just being in charge of people can help you realize if you like working with people. And that sometimes is like the biggest recognition in itself. Maybe sometimes you want to help coach somebody. So that's how I found out that education really wasn't that bad. I went back and helped teach an evening class. But if you have the opportunity, you're interested in teaching kids or teaching college students, if you have in your area like a teacher training program where you can actually like observe a classroom and help out that teacher, do it. Or take the time and job shadow a teacher and ask them like, hey, what do you do? But another thing that I think people don't always realize, because I grew up with a mom who is a teacher, who I now go back for a lot of advice, is like, ask the people around you who are in that career, because they'll be able to give you some really awesome advice about what they do, and be honest with you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. John?
Our other speakers made a lot of really great points. One thing I would like to add is that, if you think, just try things, go out and volunteer for something, shadow someone as has been mentioned. But, if you find out afterwards that you don't like it, then you've achieved your goal too, because you don't want to do that for a career. So that's the thing to help roll things out. I was one of those students that really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I kind of meandered for a while, and I think being able to roll things out is key. But yeah, and if you're looking at the line that I went into, I mean, definitely spend some time in getting involved with the political campaign, or knocking doors for people. Those things could, they may not be fun every part of it, because you could make your head chewed off by someone that's upset or passionate about an issue. But you'll learn how to think on your feet. You learn how to represent someone. You learn how to talk to people. Those are all skills that could help you out no matter where you're heading. So yeah, look for those opportunities. And I think so many things can, whether it might not be the same actual experience with a particular topic area, you learn those skills of talking to people and working through issues that will apply to no matter where you want to head. So find something you're passionate about, explore it a little bit more, and the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. That's okay.
Yeah.
We all continue to be there. But yeah, we wish you the best.
There you go. Get out, try. So kind of wrapping up, because you guys have done such a great job of answering my questions, but to help students really realize just the big picture, I think, John, you kind of mentioned when you were answering, that there are parts that you might not like. All of you did, really. There are parts that you might not like, but those are also great learning experiences to know that maybe that's not the avenue you want to go. But even in your jobs that you have now, if a student's looking in your career area, we all have those tasks that aren't necessarily the ones that you wake up for ready to go, but you have to do them in order to do the things that are super fun in your job. And to make it tougher on you, you can't say paperwork. Okay, so that's off the table, because nobody likes that, or at least I haven't met somebody yet. Okay, but besides paperwork, what are those? Just kind of share one task or one thought on, this has to be done in order for me to do my job, and so that they can come in eyes wide open to a type of job in your profession. Sarah, I'll start with you.
Definitely correspondence, emails, phone calls, hate it all. I don't know why. Emails are better than phone call. I just hate waiting for the person to reply and then making a plan and yada, 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 on and on. And, so one thing that helps that is somebody told me to automate your weaknesses. And that's one of my weaknesses. I don't like it. So a lot of that's automated. So whether you can hire somebody to help you do that or automate it, a lot of my emails are on automation. That certainly makes it a lot easier.
Awesome. Thank you. Katie, what about you?
So mine is very post-secondary world focused. I hate dealing with financial aid. Worst. It is the worst. I hate it.
No matter what side of the coin.
Students hate it. I hate it. It has to be done. So on my end, it's helping students navigate, like, who do I talk to? What do I do? Where do my parents go? I will never claim to be an expert. That's why there are experts in financial aid. Thank God. We praise God for them. But part of it is like I have to do a lot of reporting on my end. I have students I'm taking MSU classes at the same time they're taking KCC, so I really hate it. And so like Sarah's kind of saying, like I just make myself sit at my desk and I put calendar reminds of Kate, you got to get this done. But yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
So good. Thank you for all being transparent. I appreciate that. John, what about you?
I like it all.
Yeah.
I'll echo some of the same things. Keeping up on
Yeah.
emails and messages and things like that. It just seems to be overwhelming at times, and it's not always about the parts of your job you're passionate about either. But I think what is enjoyable is talking to people, that come with a problem, or taking an issue that's important to somebody or important to a lot of people, and sharing it with those that can make a difference or influence it. It's I don't always like to talk to the media. That's one of the parts of my job, and so to me, it's just like making sure I'm prepared. And that planning isn't something I necessarily always like to do, just because I kind of like things to be spontaneous. I like that. I like that part of things. But making sure you've got notes, you've thought through different situations. What are those questions that you might get asked that you you could answer incorrectly if on the spot. So making sure you're ready for those things, it really makes it a lot easier. But yeah, it's just trying to diffuse that situation so you're not on edge. It was really helpful, I think. So, and those things come with practice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Experience trying them out, like you all said, right? And I think in this focus area of careers, we're people, and we want to be with people. So when we have to do things that allow us to be with people, we can manage that. But ultimately, we want to be with people, talk with people, share and experience their energy and go from there. So well, we have just really enjoyed talking with all three of you today. I appreciate that you took the time to kind of share with those that are watching. Three very different careers, but yet at the same time, all helping to make change. And so I appreciate that you're willing to get on here and be transparent, like we said, but then just to influence and maybe inspire somebody that took just something that you said to make that next step towards a career that would help them be the change in agriculture. So I appreciate you all doing that today. And for those of you that are watching, we just thank you for being here. Make sure that you check out any of the other Bee Agriculture career panels that we have on the Michigan Farm Bureau YouTube channel or the Michigan Ag in the Classroom website, where there's a lot of different resources. If maybe this isn't the career path, check out one of the other series that we have for you today. So thanks, guys. Have a great day. And I'm sure that we will see you soon.